video is to show you a couple things that you can do for pretty much every joint in the body. And I'm just picking like one exercise that I think is really effective. And I think that if you were to just do that once a week, twice a week, maybe even daily, if you made that your routine, I think you could keep your joints in really good condition and your various body parts essentially. So sometimes not just one joint, we're talking about the whole foot for example. So we'll go through those. We're going to start from the ground up, and the first thing is going to be, you can find a tennis ball that your dog isn't trying to steal from you or hasn't chewed to bits. That's a great thing to start with. So foam rolling the base of the feet for up to a minute each. Take your time. So I'm even going a little bit faster than I think I need to, but my feet aren't too sensitive thankfully. They don't have a lot of hot spots, but if you really take your time and go slowly, you'll get more benefit because there's more time for the sensory input to have the body think of like making a change there and thinking about receiving that pressure and then changing how the fluid is moving in that space. So our fascia is very responsive to pressure and heat and vibration and things like that. So we're just applying some pressure and we'll also generate heat if we're doing it for long enough and we're warm to start with. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing, let's get rid of this, is still focusing on the feet, but the toes in particular and the small muscles of the foot. So whenever you hear the term intrinsic muscles of the foot or the small ones, it means those ones that are just in the foot and that don't cross over the ankle joint as well. So what we're going to do is lift the toes up in the air, spread them out, and then reach them forward back on the ground, trying to keep a gap in between each set of toes. So that's a really nice one for getting lots of muscles in the foot and for preventing too much damage or like long-term issues with the idea of the toes going in that way, the big toes in particular, and even the little toes. Like I'm prone to that, I have been there all my life. I think it just started when I was young. So it's hard to reverse, but it isn't difficult to prevent worsening of it. Just by doing this exercise, you get loads out of it. So we lift the toes up, we spread them out, and we reach them forward. Lots of people can't do that straight away. They can often, lifting the toes up usually okay, but some people are stuck there. If your big toe doesn't come up very high, you could have what's called hallux rigidus. So you're actually stuck, that toe joint needs to be mobilized. So you might want to get that looked at, or just simply work on this exercise for a while. Use your hands and fingers to actually try and get it up and down at the start manually, and then try to get the toe muscles to actually do the work. And then spreading out, this is the really tricky part for a lot of people. So spreading out is just like, you'll be trying to do it and you won't know how to do it. Think about spreading the fingers, but that can sometimes help. So if you do that at the same time, if you're not already doing it without realizing it, that can help. But over time, if you just have that intent to do it and practice enough, you can get there. Some toes will probably stay stuck together before they all learn to separate. If you really need to, again, you can put your fingers down and just actually try and teach them to spread out. So if you do it manually and then try and hold it there, as you take your finger away, that can sometimes be a little trick to try, but your finger will probably be too big a gap. So another thing is just to wrap a sock in and around each of those toes and then have them in that position while you lift the toes up and reach it forward. At least they'll be getting that sensory input of actually being spread, even if you can't physically do it at the start. But as I said, you will learn to do it when you have that intent and you try it often enough. The next thing is going to be ankle rocks. Particularly useful for people with previous ankle sprains, which includes myself. Unfortunately on both sides now, just because of this recent one on the left. It's only happened once on each side, so my range is still pretty good, but it could be better, and so I need to keep on top of this. So basically I'm trying to just bring my knee past my toes, relaxing the foot into the ground. I want to feel like the foot really falls into the ground. The arch is happy to drop down a bit without losing the outside edge of my foot off the floor. Absolutely don't want that. So we go forward and back, and then we can think about bringing the knee over the big toe. So look like this. Rather than just letting it go straight ahead to where it feels comfortable, that still might end up towards the big toe. That's really normal. But when we're trying to exaggerate it, we'll bring it more to the inside of the big toe and go forward like that. Now we're trying to get the movement from here down, so we're not really trying to get the whole body to go that way. That is like a different kind of exercise, but just to really focus on that ankle, we're just thinking about bringing the shin and knee forward over the inside of the foot. And then lastly, you might have guessed, we're going to go towards the outside. So over the baby toe, and this is the one that a lot of people I see are stuck on compared to the other two. So they can be often equal going straight ahead and inside, but then this last one, they'll feel much more stuck. And that can be even if they didn't have previous injury. And then you want to do it on both sides or just one side, but if you're going for just general health and keeping things fresh, then you obviously want to do both sides, but you might do more on the side that seems to be worse, so more restricted. So the other thing we're going to go into now is a ball pull for the knee. So this doesn't have to be a medicine ball, it can just be a football, basketball or similar. And this is simply so we don't lose the ability to bend the knee and we keep it kind of lubricated is one way to think of it. And so we're just going to have the full out here with our knee not fully straight. And then we're going to pull it, oh, I kind of lost the contact there. We're going to pull it in as far as we can. Now, if you started too far away and you only got to here with the ball or whatever, just start in instead. So start in as far as you can. You should be squeezing the calf and the thigh together and then roll the ball out. And if you only get to there, that's absolutely fine, because it's more important here to get the knee bending than to straightening it, because a lot of people with knee issues are actually over straightening their knee and they're holding it locked out and it's bending it. That's the real issue. So this is the simple exercise to try and help with that. So you'll notice as I go out, I end up on my heel. As I come in, I come up on the ball of my foot. So that's just engaging a little bit of the ankle and calf muscle as well. So the calf muscle runs through the back of the knee as well. So it's just engaging it in that regard too. Now you can just play around with that a little bit each time. So if you do want to go to the straight knee, because maybe you have had surgery and actually you haven't got your full extension back, that is a common enough issue. So then you might actually work a little bit more on this range. You push the ball out and then get the leg nice and straight. The idea is that the ball's there to give you something to work with, so it implements. So you're not just bending and straightening the leg, you're actually trying to actively control something else, which then helps the body feel like there's more of a reason behind it, more intent, and it will end up moving slightly differently each time as well. So it's not just the same thing over and over, and it has to sense something, because the body wants to organize itself based on its environment, not based on always on what we are telling it to do. So if we're telling it that we want to achieve a task that's outside of our body, it's going to be more effective than if we just tell it to move our joints, because outside is more important in terms of the environment and inputs that it gets. So the next thing I want to do is for the hips. So we're going to go into a hinge. This is really helpful for keeping the back from feeling pain, because we want to be able to move through our legs, not our backs, when we go to reach. Now that doesn't mean we can't round our backs when we go to reach something. It just means that we want to lead with the hips, and we want to feel like the legs, the bone, the hamstrings, they're taking the load when we do bend over. So here what we'll do is set up feet under the hips. So we're not going wide, we're going feet under the hips. And we're going to put our fingers facing down towards the feet, and then just under the bony parts of our hips there. And we're going to fold over our hands. So the fingers can kind of push to help direct the movement in the correct direction. But I like to think of it as well as like we're trying to fold over the hands and kind of squat it a little bit between the thigh and the tummy. So we're there, and then we stand back up. One thing that's super important is that we keep our knees forward, we don't pull them back with us. So knees or shins, whichever body part you like to think of, keep them where they are, keep a little bit soft to the knees, and then push back without losing their position. There, and stand back up. When you stand back up, try and just give a little squash through the floor with your feet in order to make sure that you use the legs that bit more rather than the back. If you have no intent through the floor, your back will kick in. So that's a really good one. Also, stretch out the bum, really get it to reach behind you, and so that you feel like your fabric is stretching, you feel like you're happy to show off your big derriere. That's going to help prevent that stiffness, tightness, glute clenching, that will pull on the low back, on the sacrum, on the pelvis, and it just doesn't really allow you to move as easily through the hip if that's where your tension is. So the other thing for the hips is going to be rotation. I'm just a big fan of this exercise in general, and I think we should be able to get in and out of it. So it's going to be 90-degree position set up in the front and the back leg. So our knee is in front of our hip here, but it's out to the side of our hip on the other leg. We start facing this way, and then we're going to finish facing the back leg. So we're going to do it by rotating up and over our feet with each leg, so that we end up facing the opposite way in the exact same angles though. So 90 degrees with the leg here, 90 degrees with the leg here, and then we go back. So in this, we want to be able to do it without using our hands, but at the start, you can use your hands. Just make sure you're pulling through the legs. Otherwise, there's just no benefit. You want to be able to pull through the legs so that they're actually getting the benefit. If you just push and fall through the legs, like you push through the hands, I mean, and just fall through the legs, you're getting just a tiny amount of benefit that you could be getting. So here, I'll try and get over the legs, over the feet, using my legs and not my hands. And then I have to keep a little bit of tension through my torso in order to not fall backwards and to be able to allow that movement at the hip. And that's how we work when we're walking and running and stuff. We need this area, this torso, the spine in general, to be able to hold its position while the leg swings forward and back. So then the next thing I'm going to pick is a sideline windmill. So we're going to do this for the spine. So the whole spine will benefit, the neck, the back, the low back, and the middle of the back. But the thoracic spine is what we want to see moving kind of the most, but you don't need to worry too much about that. So what we'll be doing is starting in a sideline position with our hands under our knee in a fist. Otherwise though, you can use a foam roller, which is helpful if you're quite limited in mobility, because you won't need to be able to get the knee quite as far down. Foam rollers are going to be a little bit higher than your fist would be. Then I'll put my hands out in front of me here. Oh, by the way, if ever you feel your head is strained when you're doing floor-based exercises, just pop some sort of a cushion, pillow, pad, whatever, underneath your head, so that it doesn't feel like it's really strained or reaching down to the floor like this. So you want to be able to relax it down comfortably. So hands straight out in front like this. You're going to reach up and around and make as big a circle as you can, keeping the hands on the floor. Now I've got some obstacles at this angle, so I won't be able to show a perfect demo, but just imagine my hands are staying on the floor the whole time, and you'll notice that my knee is not coming up here either. That's what you want to be able to do. So many people are not able to do it, and that's why I recommend it. So you should try to actually get better at it. Now, maybe you'll never get to the floor 100%, but if you practice with breathing as well, you'll get a little bit more out of it, and you'll still actually benefit from the fact that you're trying to actively get into a position that is a little bit limited. So when you're doing it, in terms of the breathing, breathe out, and it will help get this rib cage down on this side, but you might actually benefit as well from breathing in, because it will help elevate here. So you can try either way, but go slowly and don't be holding your breath. Because you can hold your breath out a little bit more, but I don't recommend holding your breath in at any stage, because that brings tension and that doesn't allow you to stretch as easily. Whereas breathing out actually can release tension and do the opposite, or holding your breath out, I should say. The next thing that I want to do is going to be for the neck. So I am picking this position. You can do it on your knees, or you can do it lifting your knees up. But essentially you're going to be holding your spine in a fairly neutral position. So you want to feel like you can bend the elbows as well, whichever you prefer, but basically your torso should feel parallel to the floor pretty much. So your hips can shift back, they can be a little bit forward. Again, that's not too big a deal, but you want to feel like you're in a position, as I said, where your torso feels parallel to the floor and your eyes are looking straight down. Between your hands is where they should fall, really. Then from here, you can see my head is kind of pulled forward a bit, because that's just gravity pulling it down. I'm going to lift it back, and this is my neck strengthening exercise. So if I'm able to just hold that, I can actually shift my weight into my hands a bit more, that's going to make my neck work harder because the shoulder muscles are being more involved now as well. And the neck muscles are, some of them overlap with the shoulder muscles. So they have to all coordinate. As I said, lift the knees for a little bit extra, to try and hold the position as best you can. Don't let the head creep forward. I'm pretty sure mine keeps creeping forward because I could do with more practice at this. You can think of it as a little bit of a chin tuck, but I don't feel the need to exaggerate that, so I don't need to go super double chin on myself, but a little bit of one is good. If I feel really long through the back of my neck here, that's also good. So it's kind of like my ponytail is being drawn up towards that wall there, and I feel long. Having a mirror is very useful with these things, but then it's also very beneficial, I think, to learn how to get yourself into positions without having to use the mirror in the end. But it is hard at the start to know exactly where is this body part. Do I need to lift this? Do I need to drop it? So ask for feedback, or again, record yourself or use mirror. Okay, so we're on to our 4 slides. We're going to be on the back. I've done these a lot, but just like I come back to them every time because so many people can't do this. And so if you can't do this, you need to do it. We need to go on our backs, pop our hands overhead, and slide the arms up. We want to see, can you do that without letting the back arch up? Loads of people struggle to get even to here. And then they can't even relax this part of their body. So they're already stuck. So you can only imagine how much harder it's going to be to get up here if they're already stuck, because they're at end range here. There's no more extension that they can get from here, and they're already going to be in a posterior tilt and everything with the shoulder blade. So we want to try and start flat. That's the first thing, so breathe out. Maintain that flatness, and then reach up and stay relaxed here. You don't have to be super tense because it needs to move a little bit, but just try and let your body sink into the floor. Your back stays on the floor, and then reach up with your arms. The elbows don't have to stay on the floor. We're mostly looking for the backs of the wrists to stay there, but some people will have pretty high flexibility, so they might be able to get everything, or sorry, more of the forearm on the floor as well. So that's that one. Then we're going to go on to, it's a general arm one, so it's arm spirals, but I like it particularly for the rotational aspect of the elbow and wrist. And I feel it anyway around here. You might feel it elsewhere, but generally it helps up here, and it's going to help the neck as well indirectly. So we'll start with hands out, one palm up, one palm the opposite way. So we can just start with palm down, palm up, and then we're going to rotate them different ways. Thinking about rotating from the thumb, that rotates out, then the elbow, then the shoulder blade, and then we rotate back around. So you can lead with the thumb so that you can get as far as you can with the thumb one way, and then the other way. And don't rush. I tend to be a little bit fast with my movements sometimes, but for this one it's good to just take your time. And you can also incorporate more head movements by looking at the palm that's up, and looking at the other palm, or side bending. When you are doing any sort of head movements, try to keep your tongue pressed all the way up on the palate of the mouth, and then you keep your lips together and breathe in and out through the nose. It's a much better position to have the tongue involved when in that position, when you're using neck movements. Next thing is going to be the hand and the palmar fascia. We use our hands a lot, obviously, and this area can get really tight without you having any idea. You can do some self-massage at the base of the thumb. It can just be quite a tender area. So you can just pop your other thumb on top and just do circles. Press in at the kind of pressure that you like. You might be surprised. You might find that really tender spot at the base of the thumb. That's kind of common. Again, you just wouldn't know until you press it in. But that's why if we do these kind of self-care tricks or methods, then you can get a little bit more or less tension in the body, because you know where to find the tension and to release it, and overall that'll just help other things as well. So on top of that then, what I'd like to do is stretch out the forearm and palm and finger together. You're going to have a straight elbow, and you're going to pull one finger down for 2 or 3 seconds, and then go on to the next one. So just make sure you straighten the elbow each time, and that'll get the most amount of stretch you can. This was obviously getting the wrist as well then, and this can be beneficial for those who have pain at the back of the wrist when they lean into it. It could be because of the tightness on this side that you experience, and so doing this over time you might notice that gets a little bit better. That's the last of them, and I hope they are useful to you.